Welcome back to Social Business Hour on this wonderful February 16th, 2 days after Valentine's Day. And I am Brian Fanzo, known as iSocialFans on the Twitters. This is Social Business Hour. We're talking community. Excited for this conversation today. And as always, joined by my awesome co-host, Rachel Miller. How are you today, Rachel?
I am great. We're just actually laughing that the life of a community manager means no days off. I actually do have an official day off, but we're here. Happy Monday. I'm excited to discuss community management. I know it comes up a lot on our talks, but we haven't actually dedicated an hour to it, so this should be a really educational discussion.
Yeah, I'm excited too. We're both been big fans. We were actually even joking about CMGR Hangout, which is on a Friday afternoons run by my community manager. Tim McDonald kind of brought me in the fold on that a couple of years ago, and been a big fan of that. And so talking community is something we love talking about. Just now we get to bring it to the Social Business Hour community, and we couldn't be more excited to have three awesome community managers, all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, which is, I think, the essence of community management. So with this, I'd say each one of you can just kind of give your quick background of who you are and what you guys are doing as far as community, and then we'll get into the question. So I will throw it over to Allie in the mobile mobile first. Allie Greer.
In the mobile mobile. Hey everyone, I'm Allie Greer. I'm in the car right now on the way to the train. Like Rachel said, hashtag no days off, even though it's a holiday. Actually headed into New York City, so if anyone wants to have a drink, just let me know. Just kidding, I'm busy. But so yeah, I'm super excited to be here. I am the Director of Community and Content at Scoop It in San Francisco. I started off as a community manager and kind of worked my way up, and now I'm a little bit more in the content side, but I do a lot of community via content. And I work very closely with our business team, which is why I've kind of gotten into the Social Business Hour community. I'm trying to help kind of bring the community and social aspect of business to the rest of our team. So I'm super excited to chat today. And don't mind my like location switches during the next hour.
No, we love it. We appreciate you jumping in on your day off and chatting with us. And we've been friends for a while, so you've always been rocking it. So we're excited to have you here.
Yeah, anything for Brian Fanzo.
Well, I appreciate that. Next up from my community manager, which we talked about, from the CMGR Hangout, Sherrie Rohde. Sherrie, welcome. I get to flip the script on you. And since Rachel and I have both been guests on CMGR Hangout, now you get to come on this side and be the guest as we host you. So welcome. Give us a little bit of background on yourself.
Hey, thanks. I'm excited to be here. I am Sherrie Rohde, and I produce CMGR Hangout and mycmgr.com. And then in my day job, I actually work for a company called Rebellion Media, where I lead our community and user experience teams for a network of 34 different health communities. So there I mostly lead the strategy for that and kind of look at implementation and analysis afterwards and beforehand to kind of figure out where we're going, and then I have a team that actually implements it.
Well, you didn't say any abouts because you didn't tell us that you're in Canada. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, I'm in Canada. I went hiking yesterday. It was -40, which, by the way, is the same in Fahrenheit and Celsius. That's really crisscross, so I don't even have to translate that for you.
I won't say that I was 120 degrees warmer, but we'll just kind of go. We'll go with that.
I was gonna say people have been texting me a lot from San Francisco today because I'm in Jersey for the week, and it is very, 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 very cold, and I'm being extra dramatic about it.
That's awesome. So thank you, Sherrie. Glad you're here as always, even from above the border in cold weather. And last but not least, which I say my favorite social media grandma, and Teri, who is awesome rock star on social. Been a big fan of our community for a while. Love the support and everything she does. And Teri's now here from a community management perspective to kind of share her insights. So Teri, welcome to Social Business Hour.
Thanks. And I'm actually live in Minnesota, so close enough to Canada to be cold. And I am the social media and community coordinator with ICUC, and they provide social media management services for large brands around the world. And my extra time before and after that job, I'm a community manager for Social Hangout, and I'm also a co-founder and co-host of the chat Love for Social.
I love it. Everybody's chat involved. You guys are, I mean, the true essence of a community manager. You do your full-time job. You engage with communities that of community managers, as well as like Community Manager Appreciation Day and all of the things that are, I think, awesome about the community of community managers, which I think is unique to that job set, which is also why I think community managers end up being the rock stars and the driving force on the direction businesses should taking. So I know we're going to get into question one. So, Rachel, you want to throw out there question one, and we'll get this party started?
Yeah, actually, I kind of want to augment question one a little bit. So before we get into our unique definitions of community manager, I would love to hear how each of you became a community manager. I know my path to community management wasn't exactly a straight line, so I would really love to hear how you guys got started in your current careers.
I could take that first. So I actually am kind of unique. I mean, not really, but whatever. It kind of just fell into my lap in a sense. So I was actually in college. I graduated college in 2012, and the summer before that, I was an intern with this random company that was still in beta that was called Scoop It. And at the end of my internship, they actually asked me to just help them full-time during my senior year of college. So I just did some tweets and some blogs and things like that. And then when I graduated, they gave me a job offer, and what they said my title was community manager. And this was about, 3 years ago, so I had no idea what a community manager was, and I don't even think they did, and I don't think many people did, and I honestly still don't think many people do, and I don't really know if there's a definition. But so I kind of was just thrown into community management, and that's actually how I met Sherrie about 2.5 years ago. I just kind of discovered Community Manager Hangout and started going on that, and just kind of learned as I went and kind of winged it, and here I am.
Well, I love that story, and it's funny because that's how I found Scoop It, was through you, right? I mean, like, you sharing about it, and then I was like, oh, where does she work? Found Scoop It. It's a tool I use every day, and it's amazing how that kind of transcends and works that way, and I've even been to the Scoop It office and met Allie in person there with the team, so, and I think that's awesome. I think the idea of the definition is probably something that we could hit home as a question overall, even for the community on.
I mean, that could be a whole hangout in and of itself.
Agree, it definitely could, for sure. So what about you, Sherrie? How did you end up in the community management role?
So my background is actually in graphic design and web design, front-end development, and through that I got heavily involved in the Magento community, which if you followed me, I would say even as early as September, you'd know this. But through that, I became friends with the Magento community manager at the time. And it was kind of funny because as she started mentoring me into community management, I realized all of the kind of tactics she had used along the way. So kind of why we became friends and whatnot. But it was kind of funny, but it was really good. And I got really excited about the fact that that type of career existed and kind of just jumped right into it. And actually, ironically, similar to Allie, when I moved into the community management world, I Googled community management and found CMGR Hangout and then started participating a lot until eventually I started actually joining the team with Tim at the time.
Yeah, and actually, I didn't grow up in social media or even digital or anything like that because I'm going to be hitting that golden age of senior discounts at restaurants this year. So anyway, I started out actually, I was a missionary for 15 years in Mexico, and we came back here and about 16 years ago, and I did all kinds of things like receptionist work and administrative assistant and such, and always wanting to work from home, and heard about ICUC and applied to be a content specialist with them, do moderation. Got that job, and what I really wanted to do, because I was getting into social media more, was get into their marketing and social media department. So I volunteered to write for the blog and some other stuff, and then within a month they hired me as a marketing coordinator, and after a year of that, I didn't really like that title because it didn't describe what I was doing, so I got them to change it to the social media and community manager. So I have learned as I go from Twitter chats because my supervisor threw me into Twitter chats last April, and I've kind of been addicted to it ever since.
Well, I'd say even though you're approaching senior discount ages, I think you do social just as well as any person, and you're part of the inspiration of why I always talk about the millennial mindset, because I think the way that you engage, the way you share the stuff you share is what millennials could learn from. So I think, don't discount that at all. I think it's even cooler that, you're a grandma showing cookies and having the Hootsuite owl going around everywhere. I love the truth and the element that you provide for community. I think it's awesome. And Rachel, I think you should share how you ended up initially in community manager, because I think you have a unique path as well.
Yeah, I think one thing we all have in common is that we kind of just stumbled across our roles, and that was definitely the case for me, working for businesses that were never very social before I came on board. I think if you're leading social strategy, you kind of naturally become the community manager once brand awareness increases, and you kind of by default have a community someone needs to start engaging. So that has happened to me a couple times before I actually took the role seriously. So I think now I learned a lot, community manager hangout. Big shout out to Sherrie and Brew and Tim. That was one of the first chats I did start to participate in, and it definitely shaped my opinion of what community management is and can definitely grow to be.
Love it. I love it. And I think that's probably part of the unique case. And I just posted out on Twitter. I don't know what it is about the community management job itself, the role, that it seems that people are either thrown into it or kind of, and I'd say that's changing now a little bit. But I mean, even the idea of like some people assume that a social media manager is the exact same thing as a community manager. And they also don't understand that like great community managers are not only the face of that brand, but they're also the ones that need to be on the decision table to understand not only where the business is going, but are armed and empowered and trusted so that they can tell the brand story. So I love learning about how community managers get there, but I think it's also something we still have to teach the businesses on their value and how they should hire. Because I don't think still today people are going to college with the aspiration to become a community manager, and I think that needs to be changed, and people like Tim McDonald and CMGR Hangout are hopefully driving that change. All right, so on that question one we posed out there, what is community management? I would say, I'm curious just from from each one of you on a role, when you think of what in your day-to-day, because everyone does kind of a whole slew of different responsibilities with content and other agency engagements. When you think about what defines the community management role that you guys do, what is it that each one of you do as a community manager that's truly like the community management focus of it? And I'll let you go first this time.
Okay, well, I think for me, because there is that difference between a social media manager and a community manager, and I had to kind of look that up because I'm not real familiar with it. For me, I feel like my job is kind of a combination of both. But this is how I see it from community management for me, is I am like the welcome committee and the party coordinator and the host all rolled up into one, and that's how kind of how I look at it as.
I love that. That's a great way of kind of wrapping up. What about you, Allie? What do you think of it as community management role?
I could actually talk about this forever, and I've actually had a really interesting discussion with David Spinks on his CMX Facebook group, and it's ongoing, and I think everyone really has their own opinion, which actually causes more problems, because I think that a community manager, anyone who thinks they're a community manager and is doing things that are related to this industry can be a community manager. So I would never want to say a definition and make people who are community managers think I'm not a community manager. So I just want to throw that out there because I think that's really important for people to know. For me, my job, like I said, has kind of evolved to be very focused on marketing and content now, but I actually utilize that content for my community efforts. So I would say my two main community efforts are relationship marketing type things. So building two separate communities, one of industry experts and people like Brian and Rachel and all of you guys, not necessarily the Scoop It clientele, but people who are going to help us promote it, and kind of, you will become an evangelist within your company and say we should use Scoop It and things like that. So I think building that relationship with influencers and people in the industry is kind of one community management aspect, and then the other one is, of course, the Scoop It community. So I have an ambassador program and like power users of the platform, people who've been with us forever, and I kind of leverage them for a lot of different things. I hate to say leveraging people, but you know what I mean. You know, conversing about you know, opening up a feedback loop and building new features and figuring out, you know, different use cases and things like that. So I kind of have the two sides, and the last one is our clientele, which is interesting because our specific clients are B2B, and our solution is an enterprise software. So our clients don't really care about being connected with each other, but there still are community aspects to it in that, you know, I make myself available to them and make them feel more connected with the company. So I always say the community manager is like the two-way liaison between the users and the company, so they can relay like users' opinions to the company, and as well as the company's, you know, motivations and objectives to the users, so that the users can understand where the company is coming from as well, because, you know, the company has a lot of goals that aren't necessarily community focused, but they're money focused. But as a community manager, I think I need to translate that to people so that they understand we're not trying to like screw anyone over or like steal anyone's money, but like we're still a company. And I think as a community manager, it's my responsibility to kind of like humanize that, but also maintain like the business part of it as well.
Well, I think that's important. You said two-way, right? You're a two-way, you know, it's a two-way thing. And especially, I think the smaller the organization, the more dynamic your role is. But that element of two-way is important. What about, Sherrie, you and your cat? What do you think of the roles of community management in your life?
She's now sitting on a table. I was trying to get her to stop pacing. She's driving me nuts. Anyway, well, for me, community is not only that vertical connection between the brand and the users or community members, but also between the community members themselves, kind of horizontally. So community is really making those connections happen, as well as fostering an environment where they can continue to grow and develop. For me personally, because I'm kind of more in the strategy role now, I do still foster that engagement on our actual forums, on our site, though most of our engagement happens on our social media networks, which is where my team works. And then in addition to that, we have a gigantic inbox with way too many emails I need to get to right now, where community members can reach out to us, whether it's to apply to be an author on our site or to give us feedback for ideas they'd like to see content about, or share their story of their experience with whatever chronic condition it is, or just in general reach out. And so that's where a lot of the relationships I end up getting involved in are, more of that vertical connection than the horizontal.
No, I love that. I think all three of you kind of hit, like, you know, some of those key elements of engagement, you know, like, important. I know I just retweeted that. Let's see who that was. That was Rachel Duran had tweeted out a picture that said, you know, I had the role of a community manager. It said jack of all trades, and I always use the Swiss Army knife as my example. Is that someone has to be like a true Swiss Army knife and be able to provide all of those roles. And I think that's kind of what you hit home there. I mean, and the great community managers, I think, are the ones that aren't, you know, focused on just one thing. But I think that's part of that discussion. I think, Teri, to your point on division between social media and community, I think of it as what your goals and what your direct, you know, message is. Because if you're a social media manager reporting under marketing, your job is to support marketing and drive sales. I think if you are a manager that is focused on more of a brand, you're supporting customer service, you're doing all of these things that are much larger than marketing. I think that's when it's truly that community. But it's not saying that a community manager doesn't always be the social media manager or vice versa. Because I think that's slightly, you know, aligned. And I know, Rachel, you kind of have a view on that as well.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a nice segue into question two, because the responsibilities of a community manager do vary with each unique community. And so you can't just blanket and say, okay, you're the community manager, you're not going to do any social media management type duties, or you're not going to do any influencer marketing, because what you'll actually do depends on the needs of your community. So it is a very fluid role, and whether you refer to it as a Swiss Army knife or a jack of all trades, it's very unique. And I think that's why certain people are attracted to this type of role, because it's a lot of multitasking, it's wearing a lot of hats, and it's basically 24/7 with a smile on your face and rolling with the punches. So it is a unique role that not everyone can do, but I have great admiration for those that are.
I was talking to the microphone. I was like, sadly, the idea that not everyone can do it is something that I think many times people throw somebody into a community management role. They're not successful at it because they weren't set up for success. And then they say, community management's wasted. I just wasted money. We don't care. Our people, our product, our company doesn't really have to, embrace that community. And I believe, community is truly the root and foundation of future business success, both internally with your employees and externally with your future customers, because I can guarantee you that if you don't invest in your current customers or your future ones, you won't be a business long. So I think that, I love that question too, where we're talking about what are the core responsibilities of a manager and how we use the word leverage and engagement and two-way. I'm curious from the standpoint of, I've heard a couple people talk about, community management's, roles are not only unique, but also the message that they're delivering. What do you guys think about that? Are you guys, I like to think of it as we're the community manager is that evangelist where they don't have to sell you on anything. To Teri's point, you're part of the organizer of the event. You're making sure they're the traffic cop, but you don't actually have to make sure that they're going to a landing page and closing all the time. Or is that something that still kind of falls under your guys' role when it comes to the KPIs that you're kind of responsible for? Because I think that kind of answers part of that question too. Go ahead, Allie. I know you're ready.
You saw me. Yeah, so for me, like I was saying, my role is I'm also the marketing director, so it's very intertwined, and for me that's a great thing because I have full ownership of like each step of the process. That said, I obviously can't speak for everyone, but in my specific situation, the goal of the company that I work for is revenue. So my goals are very much aligned with that, and my goals include lead generation and blog traffic and conversions and things like that. And I don't necessarily have like measurable community KPIs, which I think is a great thing actually, because it's really hard to, figure that out. And I actually like having marketing KPIs so that I can prove my work pretty much like a lot more easily. That said, I always really do keep in mind those business goals. So I guess like a little opposite of what you said, Brian, but like for me, my end goal is lead gen and conversions, and that is my end goal. And for me, that's why we want to foster community, because we want to allow and enable people to become evangelists for us, and then kind of have them help us reach those goals as well, because ultimately as a company we want to make money.
So you're gonna take those evangelists and you're gonna send a video crew out to their house so they can.
Exactly.
I'm living proof of that working for you, Allie. I'm curious.
Exactly.
Sherrie and Teri, do you guys have community-focused KPIs that you work towards that aren't sales or marketing, type directed KPIs?
So we look at basically the engagement rate based on like our entire audience and how much of our organic reach it reaches and how many people engage with it, as well as click-throughs to our site, because it is a content-based community. So we want people to actually land on our site, and then we also look at kind of negative feedback just to make sure that we are actually delivering things that people want to see.
What about you?
I would say because I work for a B2B company, and everything that we do on our social sites really is to lead people to our website. So it's always about that. And yet there's also a lot of people in there who aren't our target. They're not the people that we're trying to get sales from. But and so I feel like my content creation is more that, but I've also engaged with the people who are there that obviously are not our potential customers. So I think that's important. And like with Social Hangout, it's totally different. I feel like it's the community that I'm focusing on, and not so much the lead generation and getting people to our landing pages and stuff.
Yeah, I think for me, I got stuck on Twitter. I keep a really close watch on engagement. I think for all communities, you need to define, your network may be quite large, but your community is a small subset, so knowing the difference is key to community success. and also sentiment. I know that's been mentioned a couple times. The health of your community is a big success factor, and that doesn't necessarily fall into marketing or sales specifically, but it is a huge determiner of success. And we're going to skip a question because we're already halfway through the hour, and I'm starting to sweat a little because we're not going to get to all of them. So question 5 is, should a community manager engage from a brand account or from their own account? I'm actually curious because I know all of you kind of do a little of each, so I'm curious to see your answers to this one. And Allie, do you want to jump in?
I was actually going to say I'll go last for this because I'm just about to get on the train.
Okay. Teri, you want to jump in?
Yeah, under ICUC, I speak as the brand, so I always have to speak in the we. I can't do the I. So, and I can't say that it's me, though a lot of people know it's me. And so, yeah, I have to speak as specifically as the brand in that case. And I really like it for companies that can use I and have their initials or their name after when they're simply engaging, not for when they're posting updates or something, but for the actual engagement. I really think that personal aspect is so important, and I hope in the future that more brands will get on board with that. I don't know if it works for a company like ours as a B2B in the sense that we are, but I wish it did.
Well, do you ever get people asking you, Teri, do you ever get people asking you, who's replying to this, or where do I kind of follow up, or even at the end when they're actually talking to you, say, wait, was that you behind the handle? Is that something that you get? Because I question the idea that B2B shouldn't be doing that, because I think it's that humanized element, and a B2B doesn't mean that they don't want to know the human behind the handle as well. So does that come up in conversation?
Yeah, when I'm on in chats as ICUC, the people that know me, they know, so they'll say my name, and I will answer them back personally because of course they know who I am. So I don't have a problem with that. If somebody's asking a question that in a message, like a DM or on Facebook as a message, then I'll say who I am to them. That's not out there public, but I will say. Twitter's pretty much the only place where people actually say my name.
Yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to kind of do that, but I think there is some etiquette. I know me personally, if I am participating in a Twitter chat as a brand, I'll say at the beginning that it's me, Rachel O'Miller participating as, whether it's Pipeline or Millennial, just so people know. And then also in DMs, I put my initials, just because there are a team of us that contribute. Just if people want to follow up directly, they know who to reach out to.
I actually have an opinion on this, so can you still see me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm in the I'm sorry, I'm such a mess, and I'm not tweeting because I'm multitasking. But anyway, as long as you can hear and see me. So this is a really interesting question. I was actually going to write a blog post about this, about how I don't actually believe in brand Twitter handles anymore, and don't attack me yet. So I think that they should be. Sorry, I have to be a little more. I think that they should definitely exist for advertising purposes, but in terms of actually engaging with people, I never that. I sometimes if someone asks, I don't want to respond as myself because they might be a little confused, but I always sign it from Allie, and my name is actually in the bio of Scoop It. But I genuinely think I never do, I used to, but not anymore. I don't do tweet chats from the Scoop It handle. Like Brian was kind of saying, I'm Scoop It's community manager, and everyone knows that because part of my role is actually being an advocate for Scoop It. And I think, I think it's funny. I know someone whose job is to be an advocate. That's their job. They work at a big company, and I think it's funny because that's 1% of my job. But it's since I am an advocate for Scoop It.
I'm curious, Allie, because I think this is probably a blog post we need to write together, because I remember on Community Manager Appreciation Day, you were very strongly talking about how you want to separate especially as a woman, you want to separate your brand after hours versus your brand during the hours. But yet you're also believe in the idea of engaging and humanizing off of your personal handle, not the brand one. So I love that conversation, because I think you're right in both cases, but I think it's a a different view than what a lot of people kind of understand, and how you manage that, because who's replying when you actually do have a vacation, like now you're on the train, but you're like, I think that's interesting. Sherrie, when you think about branded handles, or even the engagement coming off of that, of what you're doing, personal handle versus brand one, where do you fall? Is it carrot signing with your initials, or is it someone mentions the brand and then you reply from your direct handle? How do you see that, Sherrie?
So for me, it depends on the actual brand, to be honest. So when I was at Sweet Tooth, I engaged a lot from my personal handle. They were a part of the Magento industry, and I was a huge part of that community before even going to Sweet Tooth. And so it just made sense as a Magento brand advocate to continue to be one, while fostering the Sweet Tooth community within that community. Where I am now, though, again, I don't really work with the social media channels that much, but our team, for the most part, engages from the brand handles. And the reason being is that since we're working with a health community, we don't actually have these conditions. And so we're not as relatable as individuals as the actual brand is. So more of our focus is on connecting them with each other than on connecting them with us. And because of that, it just makes more sense to jump in where needed, but to really let those conversations happen between the actual community members. So there's not a lot of, there's no reason at all for anyone in the fibromyalgia community to follow at Sherrie Rohde, because I don't talk about that. It's not a part of my life other than having a friend who does have it.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting, because I think it's also, to your point, it's that industry specific, and I don't think it's B2B versus non-B2B. I think it's really what your conversation as a community manager is, and what truly the ultimate value you are providing there. And I think part of that building, if you have influencer marketing KPIs and you want to build that relationship with the influencers, I think it's important to be building that outside of the Twitter handle of the brand. And I also like some brands. I mean, I'm one. I will say that I have. On my iPhone right now, I have 15 Twitter accounts, right? And so they're not all of mine, but I have a lot of Twitter accounts. And I know of some community managers that actually have the branded account, their own one that is also their personal, but it's attached to the brand, and then they have one that is just their personal life. And it kind of goes to Reed Robinson, or Hoot Reed, I think he's better known as Hoot Reeds, from Hootsuite Business Community. He asked an awesome question, and this is probably goes to a whole other chat, but he asked, when a influencer or a community manager that's the face of the brand leaves, what happens to that brand's recognition, that community? Because I think that's what scares the hell out of the leadership, and I always like to flip back and say, well, if you make your employee happy and are dedicated to them, you don't have to worry about them leading, but that's a whole other soapbox. But I think that's a great discussion when it comes to how you kind of form and plan your community. So, Rachel,
that's something that I could totally jump in on, just because for the longest time people thought I worked for Magento, and full disclosure, I never have. And so it took me a long time, actually, once I started working for Sweet Tooth, to actually get the Magento community to understand that I worked for Sweet Tooth. And then once I left Sweet Tooth through a series of events, it took a long time for people to understand that I no longer worked at Sweet Tooth. So yeah, absolutely, that does get tied to the individual. And sometimes you have to move on, and sometimes neither side really wants it to happen, but it happens. And there is that risk, which is why it's important, I think, if you are interacting also from your personal account with people from the brand, as a community manager for the brand, you need to mention the brand in your actual profile. First of all, so that they're not who is this random person contacting me, because it could get a little weird, but yeah.
I actually have an opinion on that as well. Not an opinion, but it's related. So there's a running joke at Scoop It that when I die, my gravestone is going to say Allie from Scoop It. I have highly associated myself with the Scoop It brand. Which is really interesting, and I honestly don't know what would happen if it wasn't me. I honestly don't know. So this is really interesting. But for me, I think it's a really crazy conversation, because all the relationships I'm building as Allie from Scoop It, those could help me a lot in the future, and I mean, they help me a lot now as well. But I think, like, not to say, like, but, like, I'm a professional, and, like, one day I'm going to have another job, and, like, I think that I like to kind of keep my name out there so people know that that was me, and so that I can say, like, look, I have experience, and also I know, like, a lot of people in the content marketing industry because of my job at Scoop It, and it's like a combination between I really hate the phrase personal branding because it's such a buzzword. It's just like live your life and then be who you are. But like at the same time, it's like it's personal relationships that like if it was just with Scoop It, I wouldn't like be a part of it, and also it wouldn't be as strong. It wouldn't be as strong of a relationship. But at the same time, I definitely do have this worry of like what were to happen, what would be happening if I like wasn't at Scoop It anymore, or if like Scoop It like got acquired and like somebody else was running it. I genuinely fear that like I'm never going to be able to shake the Allie from Scoop It brand, and so that's like a really interesting conversation. And I mean, I'm not kidding. My bosses say like all the time that I'm just Allie from Scoop It, and that's just like that's it.
I don't think that's a bad thing though. I will use a really bad segue here on this fact that I still look at Zach Morris as from Saved by the Bell, right? He made his day on Saved by the Bell. He's still known for that, but yet he's still able to doing other things. I think being known for stuff isn't always a bad thing.
No, I think it's actually to be a
actually
successful community manager, you do need to live and breathe the brand. So if there becomes a very slight differentiation between the handle and your personal handle, I don't see that as a downside. I mean, personally, I've built several strong communities, and I still get contacted with questions, and I'm more than happy to answer for those because they do see me as a connection to that. And the connections and relationships that you're forming now at Scoop It will definitely help you in the future, and will only make the Scoop It brand stronger because they're always going to see you in a positive way.
Absolutely, and I always say, like, no matter what happens, like, till the day I die, I will be an advocate for Scoop It because it's just literally, like, not literally, but literally in my DNA. And I like that, I think it's great.
And I wanted to say, like, on the other side of that, too, that all of us, because we build up our own personal sites and our own personal brands, that I find, and I'm sure you guys do, too, that as soon as I start doing something new, all the people I'm in community with on my personal account follow, and they'll just go down the line, and they'll like they'll become a follower of ICU, Sea of Social Hangout, of Lovers Social. So, I mean, they just do them all at once. So, we have that influence, too, in that respect as well, to bring people into our communities.
Right, I think that's the true essence of a great community. It's about the people, not the exact element. I'll put my Tim McDonald hat on there because every time I talk about community or network, I picture his little drawing that he drew out there, where it's completely different between people, building a community versus building a network. So when we're talking about community management, what does it take for brands to empower community managers to be in the conversation and there in the boardroom or there when the decisions are being made? Because I don't believe until business leaders start to empower their community managers and trust them with what the business is doing, it's hard for you to be the face of the brand if you're not in those discussions, understanding them, even if you just have a seat at the table so that you can provide feedback from the industry. And I think that's kind of where this is moving. I'm curious, how do you see that? And Sherrie, I would love to hear your side kind of first on the idea of the industry you're working at and how much, I'd say, influence or opportunity do you have to really be in the decision-maker type conversations with some of the brands you're supporting?
Sure. So I think really it's all about developing the skills that you need to be in that boardroom. Because if you're not a person who can handle themselves in the boardroom, you're not getting an invitation in there. But beyond that, very much our community is our product where I am. It's definitely the focus of everything that we do, and so I'm brought in pretty much at every level of our product and our sites and building our community. And I do talk to my director and COO every day about our communities and the direction that they're going. I think it depends on the company where you're at and the skills that you have and whether or not you can be a part of that conversation and what you can contribute to it, what you can bring to the table. But I think very much if you're helping develop partnerships for your company, if you're helping meet those business objectives and you can be on the same page and contribute to that conversation, they're going to want you there.
I totally agree, Sherrie. That's like the best thing ever, what you just said. Like, if you are not the kind of person that can handle themselves in the boardroom, then you're not going to be invited in. I just love that. Because I think like I work, like we're 5 people in the marketing team in San Francisco. So like, I mean, I sit across from our co-founder and work with our CEO every single day. So I always hate this question because like I've been very fortunate to be a part of a small team who values community, but I just would love to just reinforce what Sherrie said. Like you need to come in there with like the attitude of like I'm professional, I know what I'm doing, and I'm gonna run this, and you're gonna love it, and like be like super confident. Otherwise, you're never gonna get an invite, because if you're not able to kind of justify. And another thing is like being able to translate your language into their language and like things like that. If you're not going to be able to hold your own, then you're not going to be invited in. I just love that so much, and I stand behind it strongly.
Yeah, I think it's a bit different. We actually are a company of about workforce of about 600, and probably about 20 actual directors and people in the boardroom. And I work directly with the marketing director. So really, what I end up doing is, if I see something in the community or if I have ideas, I give them to her, and she presents. She would present them if she felt they were something that should be presented. So it's a little different. I think, man, they really have to realize the importance of community managers, and just they do such a wide range of things, and we really are, in a sense, the face of that brand to the community. And once they can see beyond just the dollars and can see and the leads and all that, and can see the value of the community, and some companies just don't see it. It's education and experience, and just showing them what works.
And that's kind of what I was going for. Like I think that's the job of a successful community manager, is going to be able to take, if they're able to identity and quantify the value of community, that to a language that the higher ups understand. And I think that's a quality of a very successful community manager, because someone who just sits there and says, "Oh, nobody gets it," they're not gonna win. They're not gonna be able to succeed. And I think it's our job as the community manager to not only advocate for the community, but advocate for the position of community manager and say, look, this is why it's important, and this might not be important to you, but this engagement is going to lead to a lead. So, and speak their language. And I think that's a really, really important quality. And I've struggled with that in the past, and I think, I've been getting a lot better at it, because I've been trying to kind of understand the business side of things and make that translation.
Yeah, I think, Ali, you definitely said it right. You do need to be able to kind of toot your own horn, or as Brian says, screenshot your awesomeness. A good community manager should be able to quote their KPIs on a dime. And when you're given the opportunity to explain what you do, don't just say, oh, I feel really good about it. You need to provide them with hard numbers and facts, and that's what's going to get their attention and validate your worth.
And it might be tough love. I mean, my CEO, Guillaume, he's brilliant, and he gives me tough love all the time. Like, I'll tell him, hey, look, like, I made another list on behalf of Scoop It, or like, Scoop It made another list, or like, wow, Jay Bear retweeted us, and he's like, cool, like, what? And to me, that's awesome, and it is awesome, but to them, it's awesome too, but it doesn't really help. And like, I can see that now. Like, I can understand how the CMO and the CFO of a company don't care about a retweet. But if you can translate that into, well, guess what? Now I tweeted at Jay Bear saying thanks for the RT, and now I'm gonna do an interview with him for our blog, and he's going to share it to his community, and we'll probably get some leads out of it. And that's what you need to do. And I learned that the hard way, and I know I'm grateful for the tough love that I've received, and I am happy to pass it along.
No, and that's good, and it's also good because you have a CEO that understands and embraces it and is willing to have that conversation. I think to Teri's point, like, you're although you are one step away, and I won't ask the question is if you actually trust the feedback that you're giving to your manager. We'll get to your CEO. I'm not putting you in that spot, but I think that's part of this discussion is not only empowering that, but you can't just talk about the what of what you accomplish. You have to talk about the how and the why, and also ultimately tie it to a business decision. And I think that's where this community management role really takes a big difference. But if you don't know what those business decisions are, or that business strategy, or the business goals, because they don't empower you or put you in the right room, how can you be successful? And that drives me crazy when someone says, I want them to tie everything to the business goals, and then you ask them if they've ever been able to be in a meeting where those business goals are discussed, and they say, no, hell no, they're not included in that. You can't have it both ways. That's where we have to drive the leadership's change on that. So I know that's kind of like a soapbox stuff, and I love that you guys are doing awesome stuff, and we can kind of highlight the awesomeness that you guys do year-round, which I think is kind of the awesome stuff moving forward. But when we're talking about predictions, we have about 8 minutes left, maybe 10 minutes since we started a little late. We can run a little bit late. But what are some of the predictions you have for the future of community management, especially, I would say, in your role as that role expands? I'd be curious, are you going to have more community managers with you, or is that community management role going to even grow even larger, where every community manager is also going to have a social media management element? Like, I'm curious where you see that forming. And Teri, you're in a unique spot, being in a large support community that you are. How do you see that future of community management role, moving forward?
I personally, we're a virtual company completely. We don't have offices, and so I think that let me just kind of hear. I think it's going to have to become more like where someone is going to have that position as director of community or CCO or whatever you want to call it, and then they will have people under them that can take those different roles. Because like right now, I'm one person, and we don't have a huge community, and we're trying to grow a good one, and so I'm pretty much doing, in conjunction with the marketing director, everything. But I think the future would be to have that main position, and then people working at the different areas underneath it. I think that's kind of where I would see it going.
What about you, Sherrie?
Pulled a classic. I was lost on Twitter. Sorry about that. It was bound to happen, right?
Yep.
So really, like, when I think about the future of community management, I think a lot about how the focus needs to be more on skills rather than tools. And I know that's kind of a crazy one talking to you, Brian, because you love your tools. But I really think like there's so much to look into and educate ourselves on with like interpersonal communication, sociology, psychology. Like, the tools are always going to change, but we're always going to be building relationships. And that's something that I learned honestly just in the interactive authoring work and web design work that I did before community. Because if I had focused just on the tools rather than the concepts or even just the art of learning, like, I would have been completely screwed, because most of those tools no longer exist. But from a team perspective, like, really just watching those teams grow, like, huge shout out to Jen Lopez for the community team that she's built at Moz. Like, I think that's super impressive, the way that she's been able to, as the community grows, just bring in those extra roles to have that main focus. I know there's another company that does this as well, where they have a few people on the community team, and while they're all community managers, each one has their emphasis, like their focus, whether it's user experience or brand advocates or whatever that may be. And I think that's a really great way of doing it, so that you're all on the same page building that community together, but you also all have your strengths and you're focusing on those and helping grow that part of the business as well.
I love that. And actually, a funny part about the whole, me being a technology evangelist, and I love my tools, I really don't think that you cannot, great tools don't scale. It's the people skills that really do matter. And if you ask me to invest, and when I work with my team and my community, we invest in the people skills, storytelling, the value of open communication, all of those things far before between a tool. Because not only do tools come and go and tools always change, but the tool is useless if you don't start with a good foundation to begin with. Because that scale and amplification means nothing if you're just scaling and amplifying crap, because that's just more crap that's going out. So I love that, Sherrie. Even that whole message on building it out, and Moz is a perfect example of scaling and still providing value and even increasing the engagement and value as they're growing. So I love that. So what about you, Allie? On or off the train now? But what are your thoughts on the
I'm still on the train. I will be on here for another hour or so. Yeah, I totally agree with Sherrie and Teri. Actually, you guys rhyme. I completely agree that community is definitely going to go in the direction of like a bunch of different specialties within the industry. I mean, look at any other professional industry. Like, this was actually part of the conversation that we were having about defining community. Of like, look at finance. There's asset management. There's stock trading. There's private equity. There's like a whole bunch of things. But all those people work in finance. And same with marketing. There's demand generation. There's branding, there's sales, there's everything, and I think the same thing is going to happen to community. So maybe we'll see a chief community officer, maybe we'll see a director of community, and then underneath we'll have influencer specialists or support specialists or whatever. And I really hope to see it brought in that sense, and I hope to see the original community professionals like of our generation be open to that, because this might be an unpopular opinion, and I know that I have started a couple, not controversies, but discussions by saying this, but I genuinely think that there are so many things, and if someone considers themselves to be doing a community role, then don't tell them that they're not, I mean, like, I would love to see everyone open their mind to this expansion, and that's the only way it's really going to succeed. So I really hope to kind of further develop the different like verticals within community management and kind of see it go in that direction.
It's so funny because I think a lot of this comes down to trust, and I think that seems to be a theme of every one of our conversations, no matter what it is really community managers do a great job of building trust with their community, with their influencers, with their advocates, with their brands, and if someone in the boardroom can't trust them enough to be in the internal boardroom where the business decisions are being made, I question that entire culture and really leadership moving forward. So I think that's a change. The boardroom's changing. Who's included in that is changing. If who's making the actual ultimate decision and those kind of things moving forward. So I love this community management discussion. I think Twitter is blowing up with lots of I think the discussion is still very raw and real. And because we live in this social space, we're doing this using social media, a lot of it has to do with online, just this trust on, being the face of the brand and moving forward. So, I love this conversation. Rachel, from your point of view of this community, what do you see as the future of the community manager role?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to kind of echo what we're all saying. I agree that the roles will continue to expand as businesses really understand the role community plays in their success overall. But I do feel that the roles for each community manager will become more specific. So it's not just going to be, a company won't just have one community manager, they're going to have a whole team, a whole floor, and it will play to each of their strengths. Because we can see, like, you wear many hats, but you know which hat you succeed the best at. What comes naturally, whether it's advocate identification, influencer marketing, perhaps it's support, more of a customer service role. We all have different qualities that we just naturally go to and we excel at. And I think eventually those will become specific community roles. So you'll have maybe like Allie said, I really hope we eventually have a chief community officer. I think that would be awesome, and I don't feel we're too far away from that. But to start small, I think, again, we'll just start segmenting the role up into little parts to allow everybody to succeed and the community as a whole to be better served.
No, I love it. And I even liked, this video turns into a YouTube, right? And so if people want to understand the value of community and what it means to your CEO, have them watch this. I think that's there's lots of great resources out there, lots of great events. You guys are doing great jobs being leaders as community managers. I think we have to tell that story, provide the business case, and I say that thing, screenshot awesomeness, but that doesn't mean that you don't tackle KPIs, build your story, leverage data. All of those wins along the way, we have to tell that story. We have to be our own cheerleaders in that way, or someone will never realize that ultimate sale started with the community, and without that community engagement, it would have never happened. And I'll use the example of Social Business Hour. If Rachel doesn't reach out on Nimble and connect me with that tool and that community when we started, I would have not known her, not engaged with her, used the tool, built the community that we had. And I think that's all about these like relationships. And relationships aren't easy; they take a long time, but you have to prove the ROI along the way and at the end. So I love this conversation. Thank you guys as always. You're some of our, not only biggest supporters, but we're also really good friends with each of you, and I think that's just another example of the power of community and social media. And Teri and Sherrie, I haven't met either one of you in person. I haven't met Rachel in person yet either. So we have to make sure that's a goal of 2015. So any last words or things that you guys want to go out with? And hello to Rachel's daughter. Moving forward.
Yeah, I have something that I was thinking of. I think it's really important as a community manager to build your own personal brand. I think you need to be the best person that you can be in your own personal communities, and that is going to reflect on the brand that you're managing or the community that you're managing, because if you're the voice behind or the face behind that community, then they can go look and see, oh, look, this is how they're doing. Are they being authentic? Are they being real? So I think that that's a very important thing to do, especially for like the directors and people over you. Are you getting involved? Are you on panels? Are you hosting a chat? Are you writing? What are you doing?
I completely agree with that, and I would also add, I guess, if we're giving like a little piece of community manager advice, even though I'm the biggest hypocrite ever to say this, I would definitely say enjoy your personal life as well as your job. I think, community manager burnout is a really big thing, and it's very real, and I think it happens because we tend to have this mindset of the fact that we need to always be on, and even though, that's semi-true, like in the end, us, our community members, our customers, our clients, every brand, everyone's a person, so just, don't forget that, because I have, and I think a lot of other people forget that too, and it can really suck.
I think along those same lines, Allie, which is a totally awesome part on burnout, is something we learned in graphic design, which I end up applying a lot, is don't be boring. Like if you're in graphic design, we were always told, like, if your only interest is graphic design, you're going to be a really boring designer. The same thing is true with community. Like if your only interest is community, you're going to be a really boring community professional. Like find out what else you like in life and enjoy it and take time for it so you don't get burnout, and so that it can really just inspire you to make your community better and allow you to connect with other members of your community who also like to bike or hike or get outside or whatever it is, travel. It just makes you a more interesting person, and it helps you with your job more than you would even realize.
That is so important. And just like a little anecdote, someone a couple weeks ago asked me, he was a community manager, we met at a meetup, and we were chatting about our jobs and whatever, and then he asked me, so, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? And I was kind of like, crap, what are my hobbies? My hobby is work, and that sucks. So in the last couple of weeks, I've actually been super focused on that, and I finally came up with an answer to, so what are your hobbies? And I'm really happy to have that, and in trying to figure out what my hobbies are, I actually, further developed the hobbies that I already kind of had, and now I can tell you that my hobbies are running and going to comedy shows and watching movies and going to restaurants. Like, I can tell you that now. And I've met other people who are runners, and I've met other people who love comedy. Like, I met someone through community management that I'm actually going to a comedy show with next week in San Francisco. So I can't stress that enough. That's really, really important.
I love it. And, thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you for the Twitter chat community. Social Business Hour handles rockin'. Thank you to Kristen out there managing the Twitters for us as always. Thank you guys, panelists, for being awesome supporters each week. Rachel and I couldn't do it without the awesome stuff you guys bring. So with that, we'll be back, same channel, same time, next week, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, SBiz Hour, and we'll actually have some exciting news about announcing a sponsor that we have just brought on board to kind of take this to the next level moving forward. So with that, Rachel, panelists, thank you guys. Have a great day. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.